When I first heard about Henry Whitmore, I wasn't entirely sure he was real. People in town spoke about him as if he were some kind of living legend. At 84, they said, he still chopped his own firewood, walked to the farmer's market every Saturday morning, and could outfish men half his age. Curious, I called him and asked if I could visit for an interview. "Sure, kid," he said in a deep, warm voice. "But if you're looking for magic secrets, I don't have any. I just live my life." The first time I saw Henry, he was standing under the shade of a tall oak tree in his backyard, sipping iced tea from a glass jar. The August sun was hot, but he didn't seem to mind. His skin was weathered from years in the sun, but his eyes were bright and clear, and his posture was straight, as if time hadn't bent him at all. He gave me a firm handshake and a smile that immediately made me feel welcome. Walking into Henry's home felt like stepping into another era. The air smelled faintly of fresh-baked bread and coffee. Wooden shelves lined the walls, filled with books, photographs, and little trinkets from his travels. There was no sterile, overly perfect anti-aging atmosphere, just warmth and life in every corner. Anti-aging, Henry chuckled as we sat at his old oak dining table. "That's a funny term. You can't fight the clock, and you sure can't turn it back. But you can take care of the machine while it's running. Do that, and maybe, just maybe, you'll keep it going a little longer." Over the next few hours, Henry told me about the habits that had kept him strong and sharp over the years. He didn't lecture. He told stories about friends he'd lost, lessons he'd learned, and choices he'd made. And somewhere in those stories were the 5 things that, according to Henry, had helped him not only live longer but live better. The first story began in 1963, when Henry was a young man working in construction. He told me about the long days of carrying heavy lumber, climbing ladders, and moving constantly from sunrise to sunset. Back then, he didn't think about exercise. It was simply part of life. But as the years passed and his work shifted to managing projects instead of doing them, he noticed something. "The less I moved, the older I felt," he said. By his mid-40s, he started getting stiff in the mornings, his back ached, and his energy dipped. Then one day, an old coworker, Frank, stopped by to visit. Frank was in his 60s but looked and moved like a much younger man. His secret? Daily walking. Henry decided to try it. At first, he just walked around the block after dinner. Within a month, he noticed he was sleeping better and feeling less sore. Over time, his walks got longer. Now, decades later, he still walks 2 miles every morning, rain or shine. Sometimes it's through the park, sometimes it's down the main street to the coffee shop. Movement, he told me, isn't about lifting the heaviest weight or running the fastest mile. It's about telling your body, every day, that you still need it. The second thing Henry spoke about came from a darker chapter of his life. When his wife, Margaret, passed away from cancer 15 years ago, Henry fell into a deep loneliness. The house was quiet, he said, his voice dropping. Too quiet. And the quiet starts to eat you up inside. For months, he barely left home except to buy groceries. It wasn't until a neighbor, Linda, knocked on his door and invited him to join her family for Sunday dinner that something shifted. "I didn't want to go," he admitted, "but I went anyway. And you know what? It felt good to hear laughter again." From that day forward, Henry made it his mission never to let loneliness take root again. He began hosting poker nights with old friends, joining a community gardening club, and calling his grandchildren every week. "People think living longer is all about diet and exercise," he said, "but having people to love and be loved by, that's the real fuel. Loneliness will age you faster than any junk food ever could." His third habit was one he discovered almost by accident. After decades of eating whatever was quick and convenient, Henry started feeling sluggish in his early 40s. His doctor suggested cutting back on processed foods and eating more fresh fruits, vegetables, and lean meats. "At first, I thought it was nonsense," Henry said, laughing. "But then I tried it, and within weeks, I felt different, more energy, less brain fog. Even my skin looked better." He didn't follow any fad diets. Instead, he cooked simple, wholesome meals. Breakfast might be oatmeal with berries, lunch a turkey sandwich on whole grain bread, and dinner grilled fish with vegetables. He even kept his sweet tooth satisfied with the occasional slice of pie. The trick, he said, is not treating food like the enemy. Treat it like fuel. The fourth thing Henry did was something most people overlook. He kept his mind active. He told me about the year he turned 70 and decided, on a whim, to learn how to play the guitar. Everyone thought I was crazy, he said with a grin. But my hands learned the chords, my brain learned the songs, and pretty soon I was playing at the local coffee shop. He also read history books, did crossword puzzles, and once took a photography class at the community college just for fun. Your brain's a muscle, he said. If you stop using it, you'll lose it. Keep it busy, keep it learning, and it'll stick around to keep you company. And then there was his last habit, which might have been the most important of all, his mindset. Henry had faced more than his share of hardships, losing his wife, going through heart surgery, saying goodbye to friends. But instead of letting bitterness take over, he chose gratitude. Every morning, before getting out of bed, he thought of 3 things he was thankful for. Some days it's big stuff, like seeing my kids grow up happy. Some days it's small, like a good cup of coffee. But it sets the tone for the whole day. As he told me all this, I realized something important. Henry's habits weren't about fighting aging. They were about living well at every stage of life. He didn't chase youth, he embraced the present. And in doing so, he seemed to stretch his life in both years and depth. When I finally published Henry's story, it sparked an unexpected wave of responses. People wrote in saying they had started walking daily, calling old friends, cooking healthier meals, picking up new hobbies, and practicing gratitude. Henry had touched people far beyond our small town. I still visit him sometimes. He's 90 now, still walking, still cooking, still laughing. We sit in his backyard under that same oak tree, sipping iced tea and watching the sun dip behind the hills. And every time I leave, I carry his words with me. Getting older is a privilege, he says. Not everyone gets the chance. You can't reverse the aging process, but you can make the journey a whole lot better. And if you're lucky, you'll have more years to enjoy the ride.